also had been shaped by the moral values of my family. They not only believed that we should be good people and treat others with dignity and respect, but we should actually make this a better world. When I was in Mississippi, people would sometimes say, "Are you willing to die for freedom?" I very much wanted to live, but I was willing to take that risk if that's what was needed to ensure that there would be freedom. In 1965, a friend told me that his sister was pregnant and nearly suicidal and wanted an abortion. And I found a remarkable doctor, Dr. T.R.M. Howard. I made the arrangement with him. The procedure was successful, and I really thought that would be the end of it. But someone else called. And then word spread, and someone else called. And as an organizer, I realized then we should set up a system. It was actually not as part of any political action. It was really acting on a moral belief, really, that you should do unto others as you'd want to be treated. As more and more people were coming through, I recruited others to carry on this work. And because 3 people talking about an abortion was a conspiracy to commit a felony, we said to people, pregnant, don't want to be, call Jane. And we called the system Jane. There probably were 100 women who were part of the service over time. It was unthinkable in those days. And this was a time when many physicians were not women. It was run out of the caring for the women involved. And as a result, we created a caring community. Right after the Roe decision, about 1 in 3 women who were pregnant would have an abortion. This means it could be your sister, your cousin. It could be you. And so this is one of the greatest freedoms we can have in our life. This freedom to make the most personal decision about when or whether or with whom we have a child. I'm doing the work that I love, and nothing has given me the level of satisfaction of working with others to help them find their own power. It's not only about abstract values of democracy, freedom, and justice, as important as those are. It's about improving real lives. Nearly 80% of the population didn't want Roe overturned. But we have the possibility of making so much more progress, and so much is at stake, but we can make a difference. And now is the time that if people act, if they organize, if they make the phone calls, if they do the texts, if they go door to door, if they engage, if they do the artwork, if they create the songs, if they create the videos, if they create the makers' conferences, that when we organize, we can change this world. But we need to take that action now.
Please welcome Heather Booth.
We organize, We have changed this world, and we can change this world as long as we have love at the center. You are among the people who are the world changers, and it matters so much what you do that you use the power and influence you have, especially now. Our country is on a knife's edge between freedom and tyranny. And this, of course, includes the freedom for a woman to control our own bodies, the most intimate freedom in a person's life, the freedom to decide when or whether or with whom we have a child. The service, or what became Jane, is covered in this remarkable film by Tia Lessin and Emma Pildes, and it documents what life was like before Roe. We'll hear more about that soon. I had started the Jane Underground abortion service simply as a good deed to a friend in need. I learned the lessons from the civil rights movement and decided to build a beloved community. Over time, women recruited to Jane ended up themselves learning how to do the procedures, and they provided 11,000 abortions between 1965 and 1973 when Roe became the law of the land. When we acted together, we expanded access to this freedom. But it's now under attack by extremist politicians who want to come between a woman and her doctor, and this is opposed by 80% of the American public. But when we organize, we have changed this world. And if we organize now, we still can change this world. At a time when we face a challenge, this freedom is tied to other freedoms. The freedom to vote, the freedom to hold elections without threats of violence, the freedom to expand and not contract our democracy. The struggle continues. I've come to this conference because you are the makers, you're the people helping to make the future. As Gloria Steinem said, we are the leaders we have been waiting for, and you are amongst the leaders we have been waiting for. It is up to us. Are you up for this struggle? You're about to see now a short clip of a documentary film about this service called The Janes. It's shocking, inspiring, and galvanizing support for reproductive freedom around the country. We'll then hear an amazing panel who will discuss women's reproductive freedom with remarkable people. Loretta Ross, I've waited years just to meet her. Yes! Yeah, Loretta Ross. Tia Lessin, and for Tia, and Emma Pildes. Loretta, as you now know, is the dynamic advocate for women's health from the days when she faced the decision to have an abortion and is now ensuring that there will be coverage for others. She's a founder of Sister Song, one of the leading voices advancing this freedom for women, and also a recent recipient of the MacArthur Genius Award, so we know that she is both courageous and brilliant. Tia Lessin and Emma Pildes are the award-winning producers of this remarkable documentary. And we are so grateful to makers to include this story in the program, and so grateful to all of you who will help make this a history for the future generations with greater freedom when we organize with love at the center.
We were ordinary women trying to save women's lives.
But we were criminals. We were felons. For most of the nation, in 72, abortion was illegal.
We had to go underground.
The woman would be given the address to the front.
It was probably obvious to neighbors what was going on.
We came to the surface from other things, the anti-war movement, the civil rights movement.
You couldn't not pay attention to what was going on.
Fetal death is murder.
You could not work as a pregnant woman.
If you weren't married, you were out of luck.
They were terrible situations.
The septic abortion word was full every day.
Women did awful things.
They were literally dying because they were women.
So we thought we can be of use.
I said, we could use my phone, but change it so that they don't ask for Eleanor. How about Jane? Nobody's called Jane anymore.
We had the phone numbers on bulletin boards around Chicago. Pregnant, call Jane.
The clientele included daughters, wives, mistresses of police, state's attorney, judges.
It dawned on me how big an issue this was.
I couldn't see myself sitting on the sidelines.
We were building a new world, one woman at a time.
Sometimes you have to stand up to illegitimate authority, and sometimes there are unjust laws that need to be challenged.
And now we have Emma, Loretta, and Tia. It is amazing to be in the presence of such heroes. By the way, hero was a woman. This film is now going around the country. By the way, you should rent it, see it, provide it for your companies, for your families, for your social gatherings. It is generating an extraordinary response. I wanted to ask first the filmmakers and then Loretta why you made the film and what you think its importance is right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, Tia and I are filmmakers, you know, so we felt like this was something that we could contribute. It's about doing what you can in these fights for justice. So we felt that we could, you know, leverage the things in our life to make this film and to make this contribution to the fight. You know, it's been 50 years that Roe has been the law of the land, and now that it's gone, there's so many people that didn't know what that looked like when women didn't have the right to choose, what that felt like, the isolation, the fear, the condescension, the injury, the death that went along with that. Because women don't stop getting abortions, they stop getting safe abortions. So we felt like if we could give a platform to you extraordinary women and let you bear witness to what all that looked like and felt like, that would be a very meaningful contribution that we could make as filmmakers.
And we wanted to strike a balance. As storytellers, you know, we wanted to show this grim reality that Emma talks about, but we also wanted to show this extraordinary, inspiring, and hopeful story about a group of infinitely resourceful, inventive, dynamic women who banded together, defying the Catholic Church in Chicago, defying the mob, defying the state legislature. They banded together to help women in need and to save lives. And they exemplify this, you know, extraordinary power of agency and collective resistance and really just common decency.
And what incredible foresight, as well as a COVID delay, that meant that the film came out just at the time that it's also one of the hottest political issues in the country. I mean, really, I really want to thank them again for making this film and providing this resource. And Loretta, I wondered what you make of the film and how your experience resonates with the...
Like Cassandra's, when we would say that, the sky is falling, they're going to take away abortion if they can, and they say, you're overreacting, you're being, hyper or whatever. So we're dealing with a lot of young people who don't know the reality, and yet it's their wombs that are at risk. I mean, they ain't coming after my womb. It ain't after them. So they're coming after theirs. And I'm really pissed off because I had an abortion in 1970 in Washington, D.C., 3 years before Roe, because Washington, D.C. decriminalized 3 years before Roe. So I had a perfectly safe abortion at the Washington Hospital Center. No problems, basically. And it should not be harder now to get an abortion than it was in 1970. So call me pissed off.
I want that button. I'm wearing the Planned Parenthood button, bans off our bodies, but I want the button that says, call me pissed off. Talking about being pissed off, I wondered what you see as the reaction now to the Supreme Court decision, particularly how you see what's happening since the Supreme Court decision, both nationally as well as in the states. I understand there are 18 states where most abortions are banned or at dates that are so early it's before most women even know they're pregnant.
Well, I have to say, as a black woman, I have not had the history of relying on the Supreme Court to provide my liberation. Just saying. Because we've been disappointed too many times. At the same time, though, it is part of this global resurgence of authoritarianism and fascism that starts with people's bodies, but as you mentioned, with voting rights, with killing the environment, with, all of the deformation of democracy that we're looking at. And let me also be quite blunt. I don't believe that the restrictions on abortion and birth control and sex ed are about encouraging more black and brown babies to be born, because they kill the ones we have. I think it's about trying to coerce white women into having more babies, because they're afraid of this great replacement theory thing going on. And it's really up to white women to understand the racial politics of reproductive oppression.
Racial politics of reproductive oppression. And what are some of the things in the movie that underscore what life was like then that people may not know about and that are returning?
Well, we saw in the film exactly what you're talking about, Loretta. We learned that when abortion was legalized in New York State, but it was still illegal in Illinois, women with means were able to make their way to New York from Chicago. I mean, it's no picnic to have to travel across state lines for an abortion, but those were the lucky ones. Women who didn't have childcare, couldn't take time off of work, were in abusive relationships and couldn't leave for an afternoon, much less 2 days, and women who couldn't afford, the transportation or taking time off work, they were left behind. Those were the women that the Janes served, and they were disproportionately black and brown communities. Those are the women who will continue to be harmed today, are being harmed right now when abortion is banned.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other things that we saw, to your question, Heather, in making the film that was a terrifying revelation for us was the existence of the septic abortion wards across this country. There was whole wards in city hospitals devoted to women that were dying of sepsis from self-imposed abortions or back alley abortions, whole wards of women. We focused in the film, because it's about Chicago, on the Cook County Hospital ward. It was a 40-bed ward that was full all the time, every bed. We spoke to a doctor that did his rounds on that ward who said there was an eerie silence because there was no family members visiting and these women were so ill, and that he called the morgue once a week because one of the women had died. So as far as then and now and cause and effect, I think we're really concerned that we're headed right back that way. You know, when Roe passed, within the year, those wards became obsolete. We created those wards by this legislation. So, so there's a lot of parallels. What Tia is talking about, you know, when things go on at the state level to Black and brown and underserved communities, and then also very tangible medical effects and death and physical injury.
Clearly need to organize and respond offensively. There are two other things I just add for things that we're hearing now that are happening you may know about. There's now a bounty system in some states where you can get money, even $10,000, I'm told, in Texas, if you report on someone else who was involved in providing services for an abortion. It might have been the taxi driver. It might have been your sister. It might have been the doctor. I thought this is something that only happens in authoritarian regimes in other countries. A police state. A second thing that I understand, I just heard Senator Tammy Duckworth describe how people are being prosecuted for miscarriages and for in vitro fertilization. Because who do those cells belong to? So the implications are wide-ranging. I wondered also what you think has changed since Roe that is more, some things that are more challenging and some things that are more hopeful than in the years before Roe. More challenging and more hopeful.
Go ahead, yeah.
I would say, you know, as you say, there are some laws that are actually more punitive and more restrictive. And that law, the bounty law in Texas and Oklahoma, was modeled after the Fugitive Slave Act. Those are the direct parallels. I think we have increased possibility of surveillance because of technology, so that prosecutors can more easily bring charges against people who aid and abet abortions. I think abortion remains stigmatized. That's a challenge. On the hope side, and I'd love to hear your answers, there's Kansas. You know, a landslide of people in the state of Kansas, a conservative state, voted to reject this referendum, this constitutional amendment on abortion, banning abortion. We're going to have a referendum enshrining abortion rights in Michigan, so we'll see how that goes in November. But hopefully there'll be a groundswell, continue to be a groundswell of people rising up and saying, this is a right we need to keep.
Loretta?
What has changed? It's hard for people to remember that it was actually Republicans back in the late 60s and 70s who supported family planning. Nixon is the one that authorized the first grants for family planning because it was pitched to them as a way to reduce the populations in brown and black communities. So they liked it then. But then when white women started using the clinics, that's when everything changed. Okay? And so what has changed now is that we used to believe that these heartless men, mostly, just didn't know. But we've been forced to concede that they know and they don't care. And that's a different project.
We've got time for like one last question, though I actually feel this could go on for quite a while. I would say the one other thing that I think that's changed that's hopeful is all of us.
Well, that's true.
We all did not exist, not in the same way, with the same ideas, with the same ability to speak, with the same resources. And we have to use those resources. The last question, though, is what do we do? So what are the action steps on any level? And maybe we'll go 1, 2, 3. And a final comment here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go micro. Talking about it. Talking about abortion with each other, telling our own stories to each other. You know, the stigma, the silence is a tool of oppression. It's how they keep us in place, that we feel too ashamed to be able to talk about it with each other and then organize. So I would say that. I would say have full-throated conversations about abortion. Say the word. And that's just that little bit can affect big change. And then quickly, the other thing that I would say is remember your own personal power. That we all have the ability, like the Janes, to do the right thing, to do the decent thing for one another when somebody is suffering in front of you, to do something about it and to organize on small levels and big levels. You know, they were ordinary when we think they're pretty extraordinary, but they were ordinary women that organized to help other women in need. And we all have the ability to do that.
All right. Well, many of you work for companies. I hope that you've asked your employers to take a stand on this issue and at the very least cover transportation to places where abortion is legal if you live in a state with an abortion ban, and stop supporting candidates who don't believe in abortion rights. As far as the film goes, we are airing on HBO right now. People can see this film on HBO Max. If you're interested in showing this film to your company, if you're on a college campus, if you are connected to a nonprofit, we're eager to show this film, especially to young people. We're doing 50 screenings in the next 50 days, and we'd love for your community to be part of that. You can request a screening at thejanesfilm.com.
By the way, I spoke to someone here from Hanover Insurance who said that their company is my sister, we're all my sisters, that their company is now covering transportation from one state to another for states that are not allowing the procedure in their own state. It's just one example.
That's great.
And Loretta.
I love that, but that also pisses me off. Because we should not have an underground railroad for women to secure their human rights. I'm sorry. Replicating the 19th century is not a solution in the 21st century. And so I think the thing that I want to urge people to do is to keep the most vulnerable women in the center of your lens, because there are many women who can't travel. Most of the women seeking abortions are already mothers. They're struggling to take care of their kids already. Right. And so we need maybe a couple of hundred Jane collectives to be put together so we can both do legal and extra legal things to make sure that women don't die. Because that's our priority. Women should not die while the boys fight it out.
A couple of final thoughts on this. If we have 2 more votes in the Senate and have a House that still supports women's reproductive freedom, we will codify Roe nationally.
Yeah, call Georgia.
And there are 4 M's I want to leave you with. A way to think about what we can do, what you can do, and actually almost make a note. You know how you're writing notes to yourself to be sent in a year? Make a note. What will you do of these 4 M's? 1, members. Will you recruit people? How many people to do the work, whether it's at the centers or on the issue, but people, members, message. What will you say? Will you say the words? Will you speak about it? Will you use a language that people can relate to? We keep repeating the most intimate decision in a person's life about freedom. People relate to that more. Members, message, money. Money matters. You both have corporate money, you have personal money. It matters. There's enormous, what they're calling dark money on the other side that you don't even know where it comes from. And movement. We need to show up. You've shown up here. We show up for each other. We build this movement. And with love at the center, when we organize, we will change this world for the better. Thank you all for everything you've done.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you.